In this video, I want to look at starting to visualize data with histograms. So I'm going to start by talking about what a histogram is and some of the basic properties. And then I'm going to show how to use RStudio to actually build a histogram. A histogram consists of dividing the range of data into consecutive intervals or bins. So we're going to take our entire range of data and we're going to break it up into these little intervals or bins. We'll then construct a vertical bar above each bin. The height of the bar is going to represent the bin's frequency. It's going to let us know how many data points fall into that bin. A histogram is essentially a bar graph, except that the bars have to touch each other. Here's an example of what a histogram looks like. We have our x-axis, our y, and then these bars above. In this case, we used relative frequency. We used the percentage of values that were in each bin, but it shows us the basic idea of what a histogram is. Now let's look at some of the R commands for building a histogram. If I assume X is my set of data, then using histx is going to give me my basic frequency histogram. Using histx and then setting the frequency equal to false is going to make my histogram area equal to 1. Instead of the height of the bars being the actual number of data values in there, it's going to look at it as a percentage. Using plot density x is going to give us the basic smooth histogram. In the previous histogram that I looked at, we had the bar graph and then we had this smooth curve. That's given by this plot density x. And then doing the histogram with x and the frequency false, as well as using this command lines density of x, is going to superimpose those two graphs like I had in my example. Now that we have some of the basics, let's look at some of the more complicated things we can do. I want to look at some of the settings I can do for a graph to change up the way it looks. I can change the main label of the graph by using this main equal to, and then put what I want to actually label the graph in quotation marks. I can label my x-axis by using the command xlab equal to, and then I put my label in quotation marks. Similarly, I can use ylab to indicate the y label. And if I leave a blank space between the quotes, then that's going to result in no label. I could change the color of the graph. I can use this col equal to, and then in quotation marks, I put the color that I want. So I can change the color as well. In addition, when we build a histogram in R, it will automatically determine the size of the bins, but this can be overridden. We could specify the number of bins, so I can use a command such as breaks equal to 6 to indicate that we want 6 breaks. So let's actually look at an example of building these histograms and different things that we can do and how this works. Here I have RStudio, and I need to start by inputting my actual data. I'm going to let x be equal to faithful $eruptions. And this is a data set that RStudio actually already has stored that we can look at. So let's suppose I want to build a histogram. Running the command hist of x, I can see my histogram down here and what it looks like. By changing the frequency to false, I can see I changed it to the density, the percentage that falls into each bin instead of the actual frequency. I can plot my density curve, that's this density of x. And I can also superimpose the two using both the hist of x with frequency false and the lines density x. So this is what I get here. So now let's look at just the histogram and look at changing up some of the features. This time I wanted to change the title, so I have my histogram of x, my frequency false, and then I'm going to write main equal to, and in quotation marks, eruption durations of the Old Faithful geyser. So now I've labeled my graph. I do want the y-axis to say density, just like it does, but I want to get rid of this x at the bottom. In order to do that, I also add in this xlab equal to, and then in quotations, I just put a blank. So now I have no label on my x-axis. And then let's suppose I want to change the color to blue, then I would write COL equal to blue. I can add the lines for the density of X, and then I can change that color to red so I can see this superimposed red graph. So there's lots of things like this that we can do. We can look at changing the color, changing whether it's density or whether it's frequency. We can change labels. There's lots of other things we can do. You can also use the commands $hist or $density, and this will actually bring up the help menu for either the histograms or the density graphs to give you more options and more features that you can look at and change up.